Welcome to the Lights On podcast, featuring stories behind building and running successful hotel businesses. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Lights On podcast. I'm Kin Siu, CEO of Lights On, and your host today. On this podcast, we share stories from across hospitality about building and growing hotel businesses. This episode is sponsored by Lights On. Lights On helps hotels grow revenue more consistently by managing pricing, distribution, and digital marketing together. We help hotels identify new revenue opportunities so they don't leave money on the table. We also run the full revenue and marketing operations so that the property team on the ground can stay focused on the guest experience. If your hotels need more revenue growth, visit lightson.co to learn more. Before introducing today's guest, just a big shout out to Frank Amon, Director of Sales and Marketing from Kualoa Ranch, for making this show happen by introducing us. So our guest today, Jessie Fischer, is the founder of and CEO of GuestOS, an AI-native communications platform powering real-time multilingual guest engagement across hotels, destinations, and global events. Growing up working in her family's hotel near Yosemite National Park gave her a first-hand understanding of how critical communication is to great hospitality. Today, she's building GuestOS to replace outdated phone systems with intelligent AI teammates that help businesses serve guests better and operate more efficiently. Jessie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, I'm so excited to have you. Just seeing what you guys has been building, it's just so fantastic. Especially in this industry of hospitality, right? I think things people always talk about us not moving fast enough. So I think you are just building some exciting tech nowadays to getting hoteliers more time to focus on the guests and all that. So I'm so excited to dive into that.
Yeah, really excited to share more about that and really how we're bringing hospitality to technology, but to new technology advancements, but really focus on maintaining that human touch. So
Yeah. Why don't we just go all the way back to where you started? So your family has operated hotels near Yosemite for back in 1970s, right? So you started helping out your families, at a young age, probably like before you were a teenager, right? So
yeah.
what was the operational reality of those hotels back then that stuck with you all through, your time, your career in hospitality and in tech?
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much about just life and nature and how things work in some of the harshest conditions because Yosemite is extremely remote and around us, the infrastructure there is not a lot of infrastructure. So everything is much harder, getting food delivered, getting communication, and all of those things on top of running a hotel, which any hotelier will tell you is difficult in and of itself. So I learned a lot about that and, international visitors all the time. So one of the most popular national parks in the world for great reason. If you haven't been, you have to visit Yosemite. But really just from a young age being surrounded by travelers and people just really excited to immerse in nature and the opportunity to help people have these experiences that last a lifetime. So I've always been super thankful for that.
Yeah, and speaking about Yosemite, I think people should know they have one of the best pizzas I ever got from a national park. While most of the national parks, they all have really terrible food. Yosemite definitely have one of the best. I can't remember the name, but it's definitely that pizza joint within the park that actually tastes amazing.
That is such a consistent feedback about the pizza. And I'm not sure, like, I know pizza is my favorite food. So I've had a lot of pizza and it's incredible. And after those, all day strenuous hikes, that might help a little. Pretty hungry, deserving that. But yes, such amazing pizza.
Yeah, it's great. So, as a kid, I'm curious, when you're back then helping out your family, what specific guest question did you answer the most?
Oh, wow. I would say all of the FAQs, every single one of them that hotels have on the page, that is just a loop of what I would always answer. What time is check-in? Can I bring a dog? What's your cancellation policy? And of course, the majority of visitors are there to visit Yosemite. So it's a bunch of other questions as well about how to get the pass. Do you have transportation there? So I would say those questions, though, amount to 70% of the questions that we got when I was really young, growing up, answering questions at 12 years old to today. And that's really where I was like, okay, we need to shift our responsibilities so that we can focus more on the guests and less on the same questions.
And I will bet that's everything that GuestOS can handle today, huh?
Yes, exactly. So I really built GuestOS so I didn't have to answer the questions again. And it turns out other hoteliers have that same challenge. So it's
Yep.
been a lot of fun working with the industry.
Gotcha. So, so before that, let's time travel a little bit closer, right? So before GuestOS and after hospitality, you spend quite probably like a decade in other tech startups, running operations and everything you can think of, right? So after the experience outside of the industry, now coming back, building products for hospitality, right? What did you see with that outside perspective that you couldn't have seen from the inside?
Yeah, I grew up in hospitality and everyone growing up would say, "Oh, you're just going to work in hospitality your whole life." And I was really annoyed by that for some reason. And I was also fascinated by many other industries. So I went and I worked at the earliest stage startups, really 0 to 1, and where they're bringing an idea to life. That's my favorite part. And so going out and being in food robotics or education technology, fitness tech, or architecture in Big Sur and Carmel, I knew quickly I was not going to be an architect. But then coming back in 2019, right before the pandemic, I started hosting vacation homes back in Yosemite area. And that's really what brought me back to the guest experience. And then shortly after, ChatGPT came out, and I realized that you could finally create a hospitable interaction that was good enough to handle the guest interaction you would trust and could allow hospitality workers to focus on the in-person. Yes.
Gotcha. Do you feel like there's certain assumptions in the hospitality industry? People would think, oh, it's just the nature of the business. But with what you saw outside and from other industry, right, especially in tech, now coming back, you immediately recognize, oh, it's not a nature, it's not by default. Like it is a problem that can be solved.
Definitely. I think there are a lot of legacy technologies in hospitality. And so you just keep layering things up. And for a really long time, it's a really complex industry. And I always laugh when people try to simplify it. And it's such a complex industry, from back-end operations, how they do things today, and then also just management and franchises and all those other brand guidelines. So I think it is one of those things where people just, it is finally possible to build something, that is hospitable and that the industry trusts, because our biggest fear is that it becomes transactional. And that's really why I think a lot of the pushback has been, because we're not that industry. Everyone in it cares deeply about the guests and the teams that run it. So
Yeah. And I like how you emphasize the term hospitable, right? Because I think obviously in tech, like not almost, I would say almost nothing is impossible, with technology, automations, software development and all that, and now AI, obviously. But how can somebody craft and build experience that are hospitable, that are actually like really connecting to human? I think that is the part that wasn't easy. So I love that, that just start becoming a theme, right? And I think that's likely gonna be the theme throughout, this show here. So I think that is a key part.
definitely. And I've been talking to a lot of hoteliers, and there's been a common agreement that you either have hospitality within you or you don't, and it's really difficult to train. And so I think it's one of those things that it's just you've been in the hospitality industry. Everyone is there, and it makes you feel super. Takes care of you and thinks about things. And having been in many other industries, it is certainly not the norm. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, speaking of hospitality, so aside from the family business, so you just mentioned short-term rental as well. So, you are a Airbnb superhost across quite a few vacation rentals. So, how does running that, it's probably like a different scale from running hotels and all that, but still hospitality rentals, right? How does running that alone teaching you about operational tasks as well?
yes, I mean, it's myself running guest operations, but behind me is a strong team. The maintenance team, the team on site there when things go wrong in nature, as they inevitably do. So it's not it's not just me, but I will say that just really brought me back to what's important. And us in hospitality, we have the ability to shape someone's how they experience a destination. And I think oftentimes it's maybe overlooked that really the opportunity and privilege we have to let people have the best time that they remember their whole lives. And that's really incredible.
I see. So, because at some point you had what, up to seven properties, right?
Yes, until we lost one from a wildfire in
I see.
2024.
Yeah, well, which is part of the story of the birth of well, not just the birth, but just kind of the development of GuestOS too, right? But so back then, managing seven, did you like feel something where it felt manageable managing maybe one or two properties, but it just became completely unsustainable when you kind of hit that seven mark?
That's a great question. And this actually, I haven't thought about this before, but it's actually probably one of the things that made me realize that you can scale hospitality if you understand it at its core. And so when I started, like anything, I think you should start with one thing, understand the process, and then expand. And so that's really what happened. I started with one property, things went well, I understood. I did learn through experiences, the best way to learn, and then continuously added on. And then, of course, using technology, I used Hospitable. I was an early partner there, and they use AI at their core. And that's really where I realized, wait, with 20, it's that you have your systems in place and that you have really good data and information. And, I grew up around there. I've been to all those restaurants that I recommend. I've done the rock climbing or the whitewater rafting that I recommend to our guests. And so I think it's like that quality. And then having the systems that are all already set in place. So it's like every time someone wants to book, having the guide ready and not trying to do it every single time, because I did that for many years before I used Hospitable. And that's difficult to scale.
Yeah. So I mean systems, right? And well, they're kind of getting you now building a very scalable system for many hoteliers solving the problem, right? So I think it's a good segue into now the birth of GuestOS. And before you even wrote a single line of code, right? Like I know like you did lots of kind of in investigation, validation, talking to hoteliers. I think you probably talked to more than like 100 like operators before you even build anything. Did you find like just from your personal experience, from other people's experience, there is a pattern that showed up that you know symptoms, right? Not necessarily the core, the first principle problems. Like how what's that look like? Like from feedback to now you build your hypothesis of building GuestOS.
Yeah, well, two things that might surprise you from what you just said. One, I have never written a line of code. I just learn how to do things. And by the way, English is a new code language. But yeah, so that is one thing. Another thing is I've always been super curious. So I will research things and learn how to do whatever it is that I want to do. And I think that people now with access to information really can be able to do that. It's so amazing. And then also, I have not spoken to 100 hotels. I didn't do much of that research ahead of time because I really started GuestOS to solve an immediate problem for us and our hotel. And it was the fact that most hotels, whether they're a small boutique hotel or a resort or over 1,000-room hotel, they all still work with similar back-end operations and face similar challenges. So I could be talking to a hotelier of 20 rooms and then one of 1,000, and we would be having the same challenges. And that's what was interesting to me. So I just started telling people what I was building and what we were working with. And then they said, wait, that's amazing. We need that. We need that. So that's kind of how we had the network effect. And we still are referral only. So we've gotten all of our customers to date from just the industry referrals.
I see. So so from those experience now, kind of building that the first version of GuestOS, sounds like out of necessity, right? Did you feel like that first version already nailed the problem pretty correctly, or did you feel like over time there was some additional learning to continue that tweaking to really like getting the right product market fit that people are like seeing that work in action, like you can almost see the sparkle from their eyes that yes, this is it. like did that moment happen like on the first version, or did that happen after like some iterations to get there?
Yeah, I think the difficult part in the whole process was defining what we would work on. There are so many inefficiencies in hospitality operations that a lot of people want to tackle everything at once. And there is a lot of noise. There are a lot of options out there. But what happens is on average, every hotel has between 10 to 15 technology platforms that they're using. And I was always using them myself or observing like our front desk staff, and you have zero time to be going between these platforms. You're checking in guests, you're dealing with a bunch of things that come up. So there's no time you're not sitting at a computer all day just within the platform. So I think understanding the very first thing I did, you mentioned first principles. I wrote out exactly how the operations exist today, because you can only really fix something if you know how it exists today. And so I did that, and then there's just way too much clutter, just removed a ton of things and went back to the basics. So that's why GuestOS is so simple. It's built for the staff to be easily learn and use. And then also, I mean, something that's on our side is the timing in terms of the advancements in technology happening right now. So just the level of voice AI, how human it can feel, and all of that, the multilingual abilities, that certainly is what brings, like you said, the sparkles in the eyes, and everyone just, I think, is really excited because for the first time in history, like we can actually shift hospitality hotels from being a place known for rooms to a place known for experiences. And rooms are just going to be one of those features that the hotel offers. So
Yeah. And just in case we are not like super like giving like a thorough overview of what GuestOS really is, right? Let me mention I'm gonna keep it a take, and you add on anything that I might have missed, right? So essentially, what GuestOS is like, Jesse's team can really, and I kind of saw that firsthand, kind of building a phone AI agent that is actually friendly and knowledgeable, depending on how many like knowledge you can fit to this agent, right? So and you can just launch really quickly, and then when your guest actually calling to this number that is hooked up to this AI agent, you can actually like talking about any questions you want this agent to answer. As long as you feed them the right information, like this agent would take care of that. So that kind of getting to the point, to what Jesse mentioned earlier, right? This is a subtraction of what the frontline staff and anybody running a hotel, right? From just yet adding another tool, but actually like reducing their mind share of juggling 10 different tools and picking up the phone, right? Now it's actually doing a subtraction from like this is one last thing that the staff has to worry about, and they know that the guest will be well taken care of with essentially AI inmate.
exactly. And I think that brings up, I love speaking in maxims. So one of my favorite ones is beginners add and experts subtract. So at this point, we know exactly, or not exactly, we're always learning, but we know what brings real value that's measurable, and we know what's adding clutter, and people need to remove the clutter.
Yeah. So going back, so you mentioned, I'm curious on the first deployment, or kind of when the first property went live with GuestOS. How did you see the operational shift happen in real time? And yeah, so kind of going back to the sparking, like the eye sparkling moment, right? Like can you share that story, and how did that look like from a hotelier's perspective?
Yeah, I'm still so happy about this, and I think we're consistently seeing what's possible in hospitality, and the teams. We win when the teams win. So we are there to support teams and to listen to them. And so when we went live with Luma Hotel in San Francisco, beautiful boutique hotel, extremely tech forward, but maintains hospitality at the core. And so that deployment, it was exciting, and it's with every hotel, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. Like our AI teammates are going out and they're helping guests immediately, and we're working with the top brands in the world, and every detail matters. And so it's super imperative that first interaction, which becomes our AI teammate, that it reflects their brand from the very start. And so in the first 10 days, our AI teammate handles 30% of calls on average, and just continues to get smarter and learn new capabilities that are mundane or repetitive. And now you're already seeing staff time free up so that they can actually carry out more of the in-person guest experience. And so that a lot of people talk a lot about personalization. Oh, now we'll be able to do like give everyone a cookie at check-in or whatever it is, and water. But that execution is incredibly hard. So friends would text me and say, oh, this hotel said, asked if I wanted water and a cookie right when I checked in. I said yes, and it never came. So it's like, that's the issue. Ideas are easy, execution is hard. And you have to free up time for your staff to do those things. Otherwise, you can't just keep adding tasks on top of what they're already doing because they don't have extra time.
Yeah.
So we're taking away the repetitive so that they can handle the execution of fun things.
Yeah, well, I can tell you how much, as a guest, getting to a property, right, doing that check-in process, it's a night and day difference when you have a very fully focused, attentive front desk or host versus, there will be a situation, and I'm sure everybody has it, right, getting to the front desk and, before you talk about like 3 sentences, now, the person has to pick up the phone, actually talking to somebody else. And then like, the person has to juggling through, the phone call and the person in front of you, knowing that the staff wanted to give attention to what's in front of him or her, but at the same time, you don't want to upset somebody on the phone. So
Oh yeah.
it's bad for the staff, bad for the guests. And I think that really reduced situations like that.
100%. And every GM I speak to dreams of a world where the front desk, there are no phones. They're like, I would tear out every phone at the front desk because it is true. Like check-in, you're no longer the main focus or a bunch of things happening, and it's just not a great experience. So
yeah. So I'm sure before I can get that maybe that first deployment or just any hoteliers who is adopting GuestOS for the first time, right? I think there's always that trend of like from being skeptical to actually, okay, let's try it out to actually now start seeing how the magic happens. So like what did the the hoteliers usually say like after first month, after they see, the system in action, like what's the feedback after seeing that you wouldn't see from, the get-go, the sales pitch?
yeah, I think the biggest line of feedback we get is their team's approval. Because when I'm initially speaking to them, I'm speaking to the owners or the GMs, But then when we get the front desk approval, who the operators who are in the system every day, that they start speaking about GuestOS and their assistant, they're like, oh yeah, I'll just tell my assistant. And they see it as a tool and it can help them do these things. That's really why I built it. And I think that's the biggest, line of compliment we could get back because we're building for them. And if it's working for everyone, then that really means we're doing something good. So.
Yeah, and I think people just that part is just such a golden nugget that I think people will overlook. Where it's always the GM or the owners or the operators who are making all of these tech decisions, and many times I'm sure everybody will tell you, okay, like the boss or the owner sign up for all these new systems that now I'm not going to use it, right? Or on the flip side, the owners will be like, why the heck is my team not using the tool? I spend all this money, getting this tool, having people come in and do the training, still like no one uses it, right? I think just the fact that naturally, when people find the stuff on the ground, finding it useful and just start using it, it just it's a magical moment that things are easy, there's no headache, everybody's happy when you build the product that is actually for the actual users, right? And I think in Silicon Valley, I'm sure a lot where like hey, to do the sales page you gotta like get the decision maker buy in, but not necessarily like truly building something that the user would appreciate.
Yeah, you completely nailed it there. I mean, well, the thing is I've lived that firsthand, and so seeing systems that we've tried, they seem really awesome and amazing, and then I think about the operations because I've also been at the front desk for a lot of my life, and I'm like, okay, that's great in theory, but in execution, it's not going to work, and so it does bring me, like on weekends, I'll just be looking at all the action items being created by the front desk and completed. And it brings me a lot of joy. I'm like, yes, it's working. And we really built a system so simple that they can just see how it works once, and then it's not like no one's using it. It's built into their operations today. And that is definitely, the path to simplicity is complex. So you have to go and this has been a crazy journey, but I think to build it and bring something that's simple and impactful and brings value is exciting.
Yeah.
And
so during those now that you have many hotels who are getting deployed, start using it, right? Are there any assumptions, features, things that you knew that got invalidated by the users, right? And how did you change that?
I think the biggest probably, but maybe this is across all technology implementations, is that one thing can connect with everything or should connect with everything. And I think that was the thing. It's like we focus on solving an immediate problem, which is all the FAQs and routing it to the right people and getting that right first before I've had experiences where it's like, okay, but can you do every part of operations? Can you do maintenance? Can you do this? I'm like, no, and we don't want to. Like we are highly focused on guest experience and execution of experiences and staying super focused. But my brain definitely as a hotelier does all that too. So I get it.
Hey, and it's a smart and not easy thing to do, right? Being willing to stay on your lane and focus and not the next shiny objects, right? Get you like taking a detour, right? Because I sometimes joke about hoteliers, we're all squirrels, like we just all don't have that attention span.
Wait, that's such a good point. And it's our team, our engineering team hasn't been in the hospitality industry, but they're like, why is it so hard to get a GM like on the phone? Are they? And it's just, yes, we all know this. We know this, but it's hilarious. It's amazing.
Yeah. So so great that now you have quite a bit of hotels under your belt right now, and obviously you're still doing lots of roadshows, getting more hotels adopt GuestOS, right? So now you're seeing two camp, the ones who adopted GuestOS, and now having and seeing the positive impact versus the ones that haven't, right? So how does that daily operation of those kind of two camps like look like differently, like from what you see?
From the ones that have not yet adopted GuestOS and the ones that already are using it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think, just everyone who has been a hotelier understands things that people who have not will never understand. Right. And so that immediately gives you a level of trust and understanding. And so it's really been, as I mentioned earlier, we don't do cold sales. We don't email just it's all been internal referrals because we are hoteliers building for hoteliers. And so our champions, people using it, they are excited and they're the ones telling other hoteliers about it. They're like, you have to listen to this. You have to see this. And I think it's because we all care so much about this industry and that it maintains the human part of it. And that's really our best advocates are our own customers. So it's really amazing. And that's actually why I built GuestOS, because to solve those problems. And then I was demoing with companies that were attempting to solve those problems. And when I started demoing them, I was like, no, this is so transactional. This cannot be the future of hospitality. So then I decided to build GuestOS, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, and I think for many hoteliers, right, adopting GuestOS, seeing how what magic like it can provide, right? Like it opens their eyes and probably the mind too, right? Like talking about scroll and shiny objects too, right? When somebody starts seeing what's possible, like what do you think like the changes about how the hoteliers like how they think about the whole business, not just the front desk, about like what would change how they think about the possibility, just like, like how use technology and AI to fundamentally change that business?
That's a great question. And I've definitely had those conversations with, chief revenue officers of large hospitality management companies who are overseeing a portfolio of hundreds of hotels. And immediately I just showed the demo and their brain is going squirrel, like you said, it's in every direction. And they're like, this can help in so many ways, but I'm going to stay focused on the most immediate thing, which is the one we're solving now. But the expansion and potential to really have efficiency across the entire hotel operations is really exciting. And we haven't had this technology available to be able to do this level of work before. So it's just a really exciting time for everyone, for hoteliers, for every part of the staff too. So
Yeah. Well, and while it's probably not like well known yet in the hospitality industry, but I think like in the tech industry, we all know like they, when people are still kind of thinking about AI, chatbot, and all that, like the next wave is already coming, right? With the OpenClaw and how like crazy like agentic bots, start like making a big scene in the industry right now. Like really the next wave could be not just the bot to human interactions anymore, but it could very soon get into the bot to bot interactions too, right? So in that case, have you guys started thinking about what that could be look like and how that could impact the whole hospitality experience?
yes, we are always thinking, in the future, but also in the present. So doing what makes sense today to get us to what the future will be. And we already are actually having our AI teammates conversing with each other to handle and complete these repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
We use them internally as well. So our efficiency for operations is really a lot of AI in the core operations there. And then we are also, the people we hire on our team are excellent hospitality focused people. And that's what matters because we don't want to do the mundane repetitive stuff.
Yeah.
Like we want to focus on the people and that's what we're building for. So
Yeah. Wow. That's great, Jessie. So I got one last question for you. So just through this whole journey in hospitality, getting into tech, and now kind of coming back to hospitality, right? Like this path, this career, like who has been your biggest champions throughout that process, and like what did you learn, or best advice that you've gotten from these people?
wow, throughout my whole career.
Anyone I can think of right now. Yep.
Hmm.
Not easy.
No, I think, the core of it, also my family has been just the foundational source. And I I blame and thank my family for the squirrel, mindset, like always as an entrepreneur growing up around that and seeing what's possible there. Is just so amazing and really just taking idea to execution and finding out how I love how Remy is making herself known in this, but really finding out because I remember just growing up and always saying like, oh, to my dad that we should do this, we should execute all these things on site, and it's like, okay, ideas are easy, execution is hard. So really just finally being like, okay, all these other layers, like friends who say, oh, I want to buy a vacation home and manage it. I'm like, it's not a fun project. There's a lot of the admin stuff, the stuff with cities, permits. Oh man, I could get into it. But I think, okay, sorry. So the main thing that I learned is simple. It's just never give up. Really, like life hits you with things left and right, unpredictable things. Building a business in nature is one of the most resilient things you can do, or one of the most things you can do to learn resilience, because things happen all the time, unpredictable. In a moment's notice, you have to evacuate your whole hotel from a wildfire or house people from a flood. And it's just like, you don't complain, you just do the right thing and you take care of people. And that's what I learned early on, and that's what I'll continue to do. So
Wow. Thanks for that piece of learning for everyone. Jessie, where can people learn more about you and GuestOS?
I would say the easiest way is probably just LinkedIn and reach out. And I love connecting with hoteliers and other tourism. I'm on the Yosemite tourism board too. So just love building that community, and I'm super excited for what's next. So
That's great. That's great. We'll make sure to put Jessie's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. We've been talking to Jessie Fischer, founder and CEO of GuestOS. Jessie, thank you very much for joining us.
thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Lights On podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.